All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome in the webinar today. So my name is Clément. I'm from the Global ABC Secretariat at UNEP, and I will be the moderator today for the discussion. So as you may know, the webinar is part of the COP30 webinar series that we co-host from our secretariat alongside the Cool Coalition Secretariat, which is also hosted by UNEP. And this webinar is the second to last in the series, ahead of the final webinar on the 3rd of November. So we'll show the details for this session later in the slide deck. But today, the thematic of the webinar is from ideas to action. So it's really reflecting, we chose that because it's really reflecting the COP30 presidency call to move from commitments to delivery and on the ground impacts and to really implement, to start implementing. And in our sector, what does it mean? It's really mean how the built environment can meet urgent social needs while also building climate resilience. And so today's session will really highlight concrete contributions from our panelists today, and how basically it brings these two goals together: climate resilience and social needs. Just before we begin, a quick note. So everybody is welcome to post any question in the chat box for the webinar, but just to ensure that every speakers have enough time for the interventions, we'll keep your questions, we'll address them at the end during a dedicated Q&A segment, but please feel free to ask any question along the presentations. So I will introduce the first speakers as we go along, but I will first thank them all for being here today with us. Thank you for the time and thank you for the presentation that you prepared. And I don't know if our partner Ambassador Antonio joined us already. I don't think so. So we'll start by welcoming my colleague from the Global ABC Secretariat, Malia, who is in charge of programs and events. And she will start by sharing with you the city's unit priorities at COP, and specifically on the buildings and cooling pavilion. Sorry. Malia, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Clément, thank you, everyone, for attending this fourth episode of the COP30 webinar series. My name is Melia, and I support the programs and events at the Global ABC. Today, I would like, next, please, I would like to give an overview of the products that developed throughout the year, or the updates on the existing products of the cities unit, of the cities unit. Full stop. I will start with the building sector, at the UNEP cities unit level. So we will launch the Belém Call for action for sustainable, resource efficient, and low carbon and climate resilient affordable housing on the 11th of November. At the Ministerial, the Buildings Breakthrough, each priority action will have a product that has been developed thoroughly with all partners, initiatives, and countries. So just to name a few, the report for institutional and project level personnel capacity. We are all looking for the net zero emission and resilient buildings report. We are all looking forward for all the definitions that will put all the built environment agreeing on terms and way to move forward to achieve decarbonization. Next, please. We will present also the 2024 update for the Global Buildings Climate Tracker, and present the new scope and focus of the global status reports on buildings. We will also discuss NDCs, present a concept note on affordable housing, which is our topic today, and the continuity of the 10 whole life cycle recommendations. It will be the study platform following the COP presidency, messaging this year on implementation. Next, please. Also, the cooling sector is very active to fight extreme heat. So the main product that I would speak about today is the Beat the Heat on how to with the co-presidency featuring also local and how to articulate local and national climate action against extreme heat. So this Beat the Heat will be featured at the Local Leaders Forum during the Cooling Ministerial, at the Singapore Pavilion as well. Yeah, thank you. Next, please. Next. On subnational action, Global ABC will be very happy to present its subnational champion. So following the paper launch on good practices, we are localizing those recommendations at the local level. So we'll have a champion from Kenya, from Latin America, and from East European region. And with WRI, we will also launch the subnational roadmap within the ZERB Accelerator program. Last but not least, we are really looking forward of the launch of the food waste breakthrough, following the similar functioning as the buildings breakthrough. Next, please. And I think that's all for me, right? So I'm looking forward to listening into the wonderful presentation of Dr. Sunita, Lawrence, and Prudence.
Thank you, Malia. Colleagues on the call, let me know if Antonio join us at some points, but otherwise I will move along. Thank you, Malia, for all the Global ABC and Cool Coalition members. You will keep hearing from us on the pavilion and what's going to happen at COP. So stay tuned. But for all attendees and partners with us today, we really look forward to welcome you at the Buildings and Cooling Pavilion in Belém. So building on that, I'm delighted to introduce the panel of speakers we have today. We'll share complementary perspective on how we can move from ideas to actions. So the thematic of the webinar today. So we'll begin in India, where LC buildings guidelines are being integrated into national building codes. Then we'll move to France to look at the strengths and the challenges of the social housing model. And finally, we'll turn to community-level solutions with a focus on securing sustainable water futures as a foundation for housing and infrastructure resilience. So I'm glad to start by inviting the first panelist, Dr. Sunita Purushottam, the Managing Director for India in GPPN, so the Global Buildings Performance Network. And Sunita, I guess you will share India's experience with the healthy buildings guidelines and how they are being integrated in the building codes. So Sunita, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here. A little bit about Global Building Performance Network. We connect local policymakers and building professionals with leading experts to reform building policies and performance. We combine global insights with local action through education, support, and collaboration. And together, we believe we can decarbonize the built environment. And largely, our thought process has been that it's not just about the building, it's about health and resilience. And we are moving quite steadily towards a larger picture, which is not just building, but the built environment and the people. So with that, I would like to present the work that we have done in India, Gujarat on development of healthy building guidelines. The current scenario in India is that the affordable housing segment is expected to rise, and with that, they will be the ones who will be really under intense heat waves, and it calls for better protection from heat, even the associated challenges of water stress and urban flooding. Climate change, we know there has been a huge demand of the urban affordable housing segment homes, and this demand is from in the range of 96 to 99%. But what is happening is that there is an arithmetic pursuit of development of these dwelling units, and it overlooks the aspects such as climate responsive design, comfort, resilience, and holistic health and well-being of the people who are going to occupy this. The palpable effect of climate change we look are they affect the health and well-being of the poor. But it's not just health and well-being, it's also their ability to earn money because there is a direct correlation to their mental, psychological, and physical health. And there is a increased high-rise, high-density affordable segment homes, which cause a lot of social and psychological stress due to limited community resources. There is an exposure to high temperatures, but there's also an exposure to water stress associated with that and urban flooding. We can go to the next. What is the holistic definition of health and well-being, which is appropriate for the affordable housing? It should be the amalgamation of climate change, resilience and adaptation, health and well-being with a focus on gender and for the affordable segment. So the core benefit here is climate change adaptation, mitigation, cooling and building resilience, curtailing cooling energy demand, and minimize embodied carbon of construction. There are other co-benefits, such as improved air quality. Direct correlation with health and well-being. Next. So how do we define what are the 4 determinants of health? So it comprises of physical health, social health, psychological health, and resilience against climate change. And it is applicable to an individual home, the building, the community, and the neighborhood. Physical health can be looked at from how I feel within the home. What does it mean in terms of the temperature, the light that I'm getting? Does my home give me protection from diseases and pollution? Does my home and my building and the community allow for social interaction? Does everybody feel safe? What kind of gender equity is there? And could we look at what crowding and densities do to the social and associated psychological health, which is linked to, whether I have enough privacy, safety. Do I have access to nature? What about aesthetics, choice, and flexibility? And most importantly, is the community or where I'm living prepared for disaster? And is there a resilience? And what kind of disruptions do I expect in this day and age where climate change is at our doorstep? Next. Yeah. So what we want is homes that are low carbon, low embodied and operational carbon, and there is an integration of renewable energy. It should be affordable in terms of cost of construction, cost of operation and maintenance. Cost of land is not in our hand, but assuming that this is under the Prime Minister's affordable PMAY, the PMAY Yojana, the cost of land is taken care of where these developments have to be built. Health and well-being, we have defined that. It comprises of physical health, social health, psychological health, resilience against climate change. So it would comprise of selection of building materials and equipment, optimization of the building envelope, availability of open space, and integration of blue-green infrastructure. Next. The impact definitely, and it has real benefits. We are looking at schemes where there is a lower subsidy, and that could be a burden to the progress. We look at rural residents, improved thermal comfort and access. They'll feel more comfortable, which has a direct correlation to productivity and their ability to earn money. For the middle income families, if this is adopted, there is reduced AC use, more comfort. All of these homes, as opposed to unhealthy buildings have high costs, high operation costs, inhabitants have poor health. The segments can look at lower bills, cooler homes, and healthy buildings offer better health and reduced hospitalization and health-related costs. It is applicable, this guideline can guide urban local bodies, builders and developers, DISCOMs, state government, and various rural authorities as well to design better for climate. Next. And these guidelines impact India's future. They help us in reduce emissions, improve efficiency, and promote green construction. So moving to low emissions and efficient, energy efficient construction. From unsustainable construction, if we have to move from sustainable construction, these guidelines can be adopted. It impacts climate action, responsible consumption and production, and various other SDGs. We are expecting that if this is adopted all across India, about 150 metric tons of CO2 per year could be avoided. Next. Yeah, that's all. And with that, I hand over back to Clement. Thank you.
Thank you, Sunita. I think it was interesting. But based on the experience you have in India and how because you've shown how guidelines can really move into regulation, how can these lessons and what you've shown today can be applied in other countries because where GBPN is also active, Indonesia or Kenya, for example? How do you apply these lessons?
So this healthy building guideline, which we have developed in India, has gathered interest in Indonesia, and we are going to have a workshop next week to take them through the guideline and how it can be deployed in Indonesia based on Indonesian priorities. So maybe contextual tailoring would be required. For example, if flooding is an issue, the contextual tailoring in Indonesia and Indonesian urban conditions will have to be done. But definitely we could look at alignment and applicability in various parts of the world.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I saw that Ambassador Antonio is here, so maybe before proceeding with other presentation, because I don't know how much you can stay, Antonio. Welcome. Thank you for being here today, Ambassador. So just we started by a presentation today on the topic as I presented at the beginning, which is on the thematic of the webinar was from ideas to action. So as I said at the beginning, really reflecting your priorities this year at COP to really show implementation and how to move from commitments to delivery. So I wanted to give you the floor to give us your views and to explain more the COP30 priorities and share your reflection, on the presidency priorities, and in particular on the thematic that concern us all today, the axis 4 of the COP30 action agenda on building resilience for city infrastructure and water. And personally also would like to take the opportunity quickly to really thank you, by the way, for all the support and partnership along the year in the lead up to COP, whether it is ICBC or Global ABC. Thank you for that. The floor is yours, Ambassador.
Thank you very much, Clement. I was hearing you very, very badly. I'm not sure that I'm going deaf or if your microphone is not working. I hope mine is, and you're hearing me properly. I'm deeply sorry I arrived late, but the reason was, I think, justifiable. I was engaged with colleagues from FAO regarding building with wood. As you know, forestry country like Brazil, the issue of sustainable construction, wood sustainable construction is critical for us. We're also hoping to advance that particular agenda within COP30, and we were discussing a number of events, including events together with mayors in Brazil that are engaged also in trying to push forward more significantly sustainable construction, particularly sustainable construction with sustainable wood. Okay, so that is why I arrived late. So I know it's not justifiable, but at least understandable. That being said, I think Clement already gave you a bit of the feel of what I want to say. As you have heard, and if you haven't, I'll repeat it here. The main priority for the Brazilian COP30 presidency is implementation. Implementation of the commitments that we have made towards COP, towards UNFCCC, towards the Paris Agreement. I think we have already completed most of the negotiating process under the UNFCCC processes, and we do believe that implementation now of the climate commitments is critical, and it's critical in all fronts. So the president has put forward an action agenda, which has to do with implementation, that has 6 axes. I hope you have seen it. The first axis is transitioning energy, industry, and transportation. The second is stewarding forests, oceans, and biodiversity. And part of the issue on wood construction also falls within that particular axis. Third is transforming agriculture and food systems. And then there's the fourth, which I'll come back later, which has to do with building resilience for cities, infrastructure, and water. Five, fostering human and social development. And six, a cross-cutting one, which is unleashing enablers and accelerators, including finance, technology, and capacity building. As you can imagine, the Ministry of Cities is engaged in most of them in different areas of work, but we were particularly happy and we have pushed very strongly to have the Axis 4 on building resilience for cities, infrastructure, and water, and in ensuring that under that particular axis, we would have 5 key objectives. Multi-level governance, that has to do with the engagement of some national governance. 2, sustainable and resilient constructions and buildings, which is what brings us here together today. The 13 is resilient urban development, mobility and infrastructure. 14th, water management, and 15th, solid waste management. We have been engaging with all partners and making sure that we have clear implementation goals and a clear path towards an action agenda regarding each of these objectives. And I think it is particularly important within the building and cooling pavilion work, the fact that we are engaged in a plan for accelerating solutions under key objective 12, which is sustainable and resilient constructions and buildings. And we hope that the discussions that we will have in our pavilion, plus a number of other initiatives that we will run before COP and during COP, actually contribute to making sure that we will accelerate solutions within the sustainable and resilient construction and buildings. Among those, and I know I only have 5 minutes, and I don't want in any way to take time for more substantive discussions that we might have in this webinar, I want to call the attention of participants to the fact that on the 11th of November, which is one of the dates also designated by COP presidency to deal with sustainable buildings, we will host, among other things, the first ministerial meeting of the Intergovernmental Council on Buildings and Climate. As you know, the ICBC is currently presided by France and has as Brazil and Kenya as co-presidents. During that meeting that we will host on the 11th of the 11th, which coincides with SDG 11, which is sustainable buildings and cities and urban infrastructure in general. We are hoping that the ministers will launch a call for action regarding sustainable housing. Some of you might have participated in that discussion. We do feel that it is an important call for action on the context of a clear growth in discussion on the need for affordable housing and the urgency of providing, particularly in the Global South, better housing. We do feel that it is important to put an emphasis on the sustainability of affordable housing and the call for action that is being drafted and that we hope will be launched in Belém on the 11th of 11 has that particular focus. I hope, Clement, I have provided the trust that you gave me in the introductory remarks that I was not here for them, but I arrived timely. I will stay as long as I can. And again, I'm sorry for being late, but the reason was hopefully noble particularly from the participants. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. And I think the issue was coming from my end on the mic, so I hope you can hear me well now. It's better? Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for your remarks. So we heard about the Brazilian priorities on COP. We heard about Indian perspective. And now let's go back to France. And I'm pleased to welcome Prudence Adja Nohoun, sorry, a project officer in the Union Social for the Habitats in France. And Prudence, you will highlight the French social housing model, reflecting both on the achievements but also the challenges that it faces in balancing the affordability and resilience. Prudence,
Thank you,
the floor is
thank you,
yours.
Clément. Thank you very much. Good morning, your Excellencies. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for your invitation to this preparatory webinar to COP30. Today, meetings give us an opportunity to share our experiences and identify actions for a fair and inclusive ecological transition. In France, we consider social housing to be very important for these transitions. It's not only a tool for solidarity, it structures public policies. Today, I would like to share 3 ideas with you that make the French model so strong and unique. Next slide, please. The French social model stocks includes 5.9 million homes, housing 15% for the population. This stock spreads across the country, acts as social safety net and a tool for regional development. Next slide. Rent is the social housing stock on average 13% below market price, which helps to keep housing costs under control, particularly for the most model households. Next, please. With housing assistance, this model protects against evictions, prevents energy poverty, and promotes inclusion. Funding is based on 2 sources: public savings with the Livret A saving account and employer contributions. This alone for long-term, low interest loan and sustainable management. This stability allows us to think about the city in the long term, to invest in renovation and to support social and environmental transitions. Next slide, please. Nearly 3 million applications for social housing are currently pending. This reflects market tensions. You see our challenges. Next slide, please. On the energy efficiency side, 50% of housing is classified as A, B, or C, compared to 30% in the private sectors. Next, please. Less than 4% is classified as F or G, compared to more than 15% in the rest of the housing sector. Every year, social landlords carry out numerous actions, massive thermal renovation programs, using biomass materials, developing land efficiencies, invest in circular economy and low carbon mobility, deploying digital and artificial intelligence solutions. Next slide, please. So the challenges are not only technical, it's also a question to protect social housing from commodification, land speculations, and the financialization of housing. Housing is a basic necessity, not a speculative commodity. So social housing reduces inequality and create resilient territories. It also speeds up the decarbonization of the building sector. Northern models, such as that of France, offer important lessons: long-term planning, mobilization of local savings, multi-stakeholders governance, and social diversity, as can all be repeated in other contexts. In conclusion, the French model shows it's possible to unite decarbonization, inclusion, and dignity. It reminds us that the ecological transition is not only a matter of technology, share out, but also of social justice, governance, and territorial solidarity. Through COP30, our ambition is to contribute to the international dialogue, share our practice, and learn from others. Because the issue of housing is a question of human right and universal rights, living together and a shared future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Merci, Prudence. Thank you very much. I'm always glad to learn new things on my own country, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
I will take the same approach that I did with Sunita. If we expand and we look at the wider context. So if you take the example of Europe, what is the place of, because I know in France we have a strong model on that, but if you what is the place of the social model the social housing, sorry, in Europe today, and how can it contribute to the resilience while remaining accessible?
Okay, thank you, Clément. Thank you for your question. I believe there is one essential thing, the actions of best practice when it comes to social housing and combating homelessness. Europe has a lot of experience, so we know what works and what doesn't work. Several successful models are long-term financing mechanisms at preferential rates and integrate urban renewal project combining energy rehabilitations, social diversity, and neighborhood revitalization. And so I think that it's very, very important to project to convert office or public building into housing, which are particularly useful in areas where there is a high demand. This approach demonstrates that Europe has a concrete and replicable solution, which we must now promote and adapt within the framework to COP30 in Belém. This is my things. Thank you.
Thank you, Prudence. Thank you very much. So we are already a bit running out of time, so I'm going to pass on to Mighty Lead as Lavin, a senior consultant in the global advisory practice at Thailand. So it's part of Sidara's global collective. Up to now, we've talked about the housing system and the housing regulation, but we missed something in the dimension of resilience, it's the resources. And so I think you would talk about that. You would talk about how we can secure sustainable water futures through community level solutions, and looking at approaches such like protection, reuse, adapted infrastructure, and how can this support more resilient communities? Mighty
Yeah,
List.
thanks, Clément. And thank you to the organizers of this event, and good morning, afternoon, evening, depending on where you're joining in the world. And just like Clément said, I'm here to really talk about that water perspective. So I want to share with you some of the approaches and the principles that we use. I work primarily in the United States, so I'll share some of those project examples, but this approach really applies globally. So on the next slide, you'll see really what the challenge is. So across the globe, we know that cities are expanding faster than our water systems can adapt, right? So every new home means new demand. And when you combine that new demand with climate volatility, we see that growing strain on supply, on quality, and on equity. And in many places, we have the strategies already developed, right? So just like the ambassador was saying earlier, the priority is implementation. So I find that in my work, the biggest challenge always is that activation energy. How do we turn the plans into projects, and how do we turn the projects into performance? So putting priority on that implementation right from day one. So thinking about how do we begin with the end in mind? So in my work, we keep going back to that example. How do we go back to what do we want at the end of the day? And are we starting on day one with that goal in mind? So on the next slide, I'll share an approach to how we get there. And I think one of the biggest things that I've taken from my work has been confirming those contributions has been key, right? So real progress only begins when you have those contributions confirmed. And what I mean by that is when governments, private partners, communities, all of these entities, we know exactly what our individual specific role is, whether that's securing water future or even for climate action. So being really clear in those roles for each of those sectors is the biggest challenge, but also the biggest impact. So in some of the projects that we've supported here in the United States, we've really seen that when you can take every actor, progress accelerates, whether that's the engineers and the planners that are in the beginning of the process or all the way down to the residents. And when we know what we've agreed to and who is doing what, who is doing it when, that clarity really builds that trust, and that trust really builds momentum. And that really sets the foundation of what I want to talk to you on my next slide, which is One Water approach. And this approach really recognizes that every drop, whether it's from stormwater to wastewater, is part of the single system. It's part of the single interconnected cycle. So we can't think of wastewater as waste. So a lot of people in my practice are changing the words we're using, because wastewater does imply that it's just water that is to be wasted. And so we're changing that mindset to plan holistically to uncover those new connections. Stormwater can replenish your aquifer. Reusing water can reduce your demand. Source water protection can sustain quality of your water. So really this approach that we have to integrate every source, every stakeholder, and every drop is important and part of every sector's journey. And how we do that, I'll talk about in the next slide, is really through activated campaigns. So some examples I've used here today, again, from that water lens, is source protection of water, water reuse, and infrastructure adaptation. But these are just three of many, many ideas that we can implement together. But I'll just talk about these really briefly. I know we're running a little bit short on time. So really moving from ideas to action means to activate campaigns. How do we make sustainability visible at that community level? So from a source water protection perspective, protecting forests, we just talked about this. The ambassador talked about forest ecology, wetland protection, recharging those zones. That's the first act of defense. That's the first act of resilience. It's actually cheaper to protect our clean water than it is to treat polluted water, right? The treatment costs are so high and only becoming higher every day. So there's this business case associated with source protection. Reuse is literally the prime example of the one water approach into practice. So how do you capture, clean, and reuse water at that household level or the neighborhood level or the city scale? Because every drop that we reuse is a drop that's conserved, and we're saving on the costs associated with treating it as well. The main things with reuse, depending on where you are in the world, policy is different, affordable technology is different, but above all, and this stays consistent throughout the world, is public trust. What it comes down to is that communication and that trust with our community. And then lastly, infrastructure adaptation. This is something I see in my work as a professional engineer who designs systems, water systems every day. Our systems have to be flexible. So if we're not designing for change, if we're not designing for that variability, whether it's variability in rainfall, in population, variability in new technology coming out every day, that's not going to be a good practice. So we have to design for that change and take that flexibility into account. Not just capacity, but also all of those other factors I just talked about. And when we're able to co-design these solutions together, that's when we can take ownership and really ensure that lasting impact. So finally, I'll close with some final thoughts on the next slide. Again, taking these ideas to action, that's what we're talking about today. Applying that one water mindset, and that one water mindset really applies to a one climate mindset. It's breaking down the silos. So even though I'm an engineer and a planner and other people on the call are in different sectors, that doesn't mean that we work in these silos. We have to break those silos down and integrate and collaborate together so we can really connect this one water mindset. And that mindset really connects people, policy, and places into one cycle of stewardship. I think I heard stewardship earlier on the call as well. And that's really what we're trying to do, connecting sectors, cities, and generations through water. So I think, finally, just repeating what I said before, the confirmed contribution, I think, has been key for community resilience. And then local action, even though it seems like a small step towards total climate action, every local action does have this ripple effect and will build global resilience. I'll pass it back to you, Clément.
Thank you. But you use the word complementing, and I would like to thank you for that because it's really complementing our topic. I would say we don't address so much this topic in our community in Global ABC, so it's really great to hear about that. I was expanding the context for Sunita and Prudence, but now I want to kind of narrow down the context. So if you take this to the household levels, how can these approaches can be translated into solutions at the individual level?
Yeah, absolutely. Great, crucial question. How do we take that community scale and bring it down to the household level? So some of the examples I shared before, right? Source protection on the household level, that has a personal expression. That's whether it's having a rain barrel, rainwater harvesting. You can do that in your home for a very affordable means. Making sure you're reducing chemical runoff. Are you changing your the products that you use, the pesticides that you use in your front yard or your lawn, in your garden? Are you planting native vegetation, right? That really supports the quality of water. So changing some really small things that, again, don't feel like they have a high impact, but really does make a huge impact on that household level. From a reuse perspective, I said earlier, policy really matters. Where you are in the world really matters. What technology is available to you matters. There's, of course, a cost barrier associated with low flow fixtures, efficient appliances, but when possible, those do collectively save thousands of liters every year. But I think beyond that technology, it's that mindset. So I think one thing to take home today is viewing water not as that disposable resource that is in infinite supply, because unfortunately it is not, but viewing it as a shared cycle, right? That's the one water principle that we can bring home.
All right. Thank you very much. I know we are already out of time, but if you have still 2 minutes to stay with me, I still have one question for the three panelists. Because the COP is really in a few weeks. We talked about housing. We really want to make this topic really highlighted at COP. And so just in 1 minute, like, what is your hope coming out of COP this year in terms of this topic on housing and buildings? What do you want to see a shift in at this COP? I will start by Sunita, and if you have reflection on this, we have few minutes.
So I think bringing together ideas, guidelines, all of that is fine, but making it implementable at the local level and sharing that what are the challenges of doing that in one country with another country where this might have already been deployed. I think ideas are there, many what Maithili discussed and the other speakers also discussed. How do we get it to implementation level to create that palpable change? And I'm not sure whether it'll happen only at COP, but can COP cascade that action and accelerate that action so that there is enough pressure on countries and at the local level it translates into action, and that's what I think is the need of the hour.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Prudence, are you here still? Same question goes to you.
Thank you, Clément. There is an awareness of a global crisis, social housing. So I think that we need implementation. This is my things. Thank you.
Thank you. Short on the point. Maithili?
Okay, I won't say implementation because everybody said it, but I think going along with that, communication, right? So what I'm hoping can come out of COP30 is we can find a way to unite the different silos that I talked about. There's governments, there's private developers, there's communities, and all of us are kind of working separately in our own little space. So hopefully that can unite everyone. We can come together, we can break those silos down, and we can together collaborate to understand that every challenge can also be an opportunity. So really communication among sectors.
Yeah. And I think this will happen this year more than others because at the Buildings Pavilion, it's going to be next to the Water Pavilion this year. So it's going to be shared within these topics. So we're going to spend the topics all together, bridging gaps. So it's a good opportunity to collaborate this year. Before closing, I just want to check. I don't think we have questions unanswered in the chat. I think everything was answered. It was mostly about COP and the pavilion. I'm calling Marie-Sophia or Tara. Is there anything we may have not replied yet? Or everything is covered? I take this as a yes. So I think all questions have been covered. And so with that, I would like to thank you first, all the speakers today. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the presentation. It was very interesting. Sorry, it was short, but it was very great. Thank you also to Antonio who left us. Here you can see on the screen, I mentioned at the beginning, this is the next and last webinar of the COP30 series on the November 3rd. You can scan to register. We look forward to seeing you there for the ones who can. And also, we welcome you, of course, in person for those who will be in Belém to join us at the buildings and cooling pavilion. Thank you very much, and we look forward to continuing this conversation. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Goodbye.